To idealize now is to make it right. Jesus had said, if somebody slapped you in the right, give them the other cheek. The slap you've gotten is the emotion that I felt. I'm not comfortable. I'm not recognized. I'm feeling marginalized in my relationship. That's the slap. He said, but don't resist it. Instead, turn the other cheek. And the opposite is, if I'm feeling marginalized, I want to feel warm and feel recognized. That's the opposite. So I'm identifying the feeling that I want to have. Simple. And therefore, it's all about you. It's not about your husband. It's not about your wife, or it's not about your spouse. It's just about you now. And once you've done that, you've idealized already. It doesn't take days. It doesn't take hours. It's a moment of, this is what I feel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Sovereign Self Show. And we're talking with Alpha Mshihiri here today. We're bringing in the divine masculine. I just told him off air, we've got a lot of wonderful women, but I'm calling in more divine, anchored, focused masculine to the show. A little bit about him before we jump in. Alpha is a faith-driven transformation mentor who's turned a wrongful prison sentence into a lab for his 3I framework, blending scripture and neuroscience to heal identity, intimacy, and influence. He has guided over 1,000 high-performing yet soul-weary leaders from silent suffering to divine mastery, and has built a K per month coaching practice with zero industry backing. He now teaches his principles in federal prisons, boardrooms alike, proving that shame can become sacred purpose when faith meets brain science. That is one powerful bio for one powerful guy. Welcome, Alpha, to the show.
Thank you very much, Loren. I really appreciate to be here. It's an honor and a joy as well. So thank you very much for that warm and wonderful introduction.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, of course. So we usually start off the show. We hear all these beautiful bios. We kind of got a little intro into your story. I know we're kind of going to center this conversation around self-love. It sounds like your self-love journey really had to hit the pavement, the rubber meets the road with what happened to lead you to what you do today. So could you give us like the shortened version of your story that really led you to be on your purpose?
Definitely. And as I said, thank you very much. But before I answer that question, I just want to say to the listeners, wherever you are, Loren is doing an amazing job. She shows up every single day, no matter what is happening in her life. And that's truly honorable in today's world. And for that, I think I cannot ask you something I haven't done, but I'm asking you, wherever you are, just take a minute of your time. Just go there and give her a stellar review, 5-star stellar review. That she deserves it. She's awesome. So let's do that and just do a mass of that and take a moment and share that link of your favorite podcast. I hope this is that one to your friends so more people can come and listen to awesome stuff. I've been listening to her and it's just like amazing. She brings quality voices to be able to empower each and every listener in a different way and in a different journey, whatever we are. So she deserves it. So please do that. That being said, I just want to take a moment again. Thank you very much. And I just great that you guys did that. But one of the things that is very important as we're talking about this self-love is the idea of Thanksgiving, because often we take advantage for things that not that we don't appreciate, we just don't give the time, or we don't become intentionally to say thanks to those things. Like Loren here, she's showing up every day, and most of us, we're consuming the content, and it becomes just a norm. But the moment you stop and say, thank you, I appreciate it, you put comment, you're changing your mind to this, what I call an attitude of thanksgiving. And the mind have an amazing way of rewarding us for things that we start being comfortable with. And so therefore, when you start saying thanks a lot, guess what? The mind will start showing you a lot of things to be thankful for in your business, in your relationship. And that's how I want to kind of start this journey. But that being said, I'll turn to that question that you have asked. Personally, I've kind of got in this journey of helping men and women who are actually, I call spiritually burnt out, in an essence that they've done these things that we've been told, whether it's through the churches, through the coaches, or any other program that have told us, if you do this, this is happening. And you've done that and you don't find that you're getting the momentum that you're looking for. So you're kind of in that moment, you're like, okay, how much do I need to do? And some of us were told you got to work hard work pays and all of this stuff. So, and you're doing those things and still you find yourself kind of lagging behind. So I call that spiritual burnt out. And those who are finding themselves in a relationship that is not meeting their needs. I mean, it's not like you had this vision and idea that this is the relationship that I want, and you find out today you are not experiencing the quality that you wanted. And maybe you've settled for whatever it is. You say, maybe that's God's plan, or maybe this is how things are. But still there's yearning inside of you. And those are type of people, whether it's in a relationship with your partner, spouse, or in finances where you're doing everything else, but every time your bank account just doesn't reflect the ideals that you want to experience. It doesn't give you the flexibility and the opportunities that you want to enjoy life in that manner. So for me, that's kind of I help those individuals first to find clarity, peace, and elevate their spirituality in order to achieve those goals in a much easier manner, or effortlessly, if I have to use that word, in that journey, whether again spiritually development or financial development or relationship development. And my journey didn't start at that particular place. Like many of us, we always start somewhere else where we find ourselves we've fallen apart or something to that effect. And it was true for me. And just I'll try to kind of wrap it in a very simplicity manner. And I remember actually it was 2024. That's when this journey kind of took off.
Hello, taking a quick break here to tell you about something I'm so passionate and excited about that I take almost daily. Micro-dosing mushrooms. If you are looking for natural ways to support your emotional, mental, spiritual health and well-being, then you might want to try Golden Rule mushrooms. Microdosing is not about escape. It's about returning to who you really are. It's a science-backed way to reset your mind, rewire habits, and reconnect. Golden Rule uses organic mushrooms, 100% fruiting body, accurate dosage, has amazing customer service, education, and safety protocols. Use code Loren10, that's LOREN10 at goldenrulemushrooms.com for 10% off your purchase. It's a small step that might make a huge difference in how you feel. Thank you so much for supporting our show. Back to the episode.
I had just finished up a very interesting. I mean, I was a business consultant. Prior to that, I had owned mortgage company and real estate investment company. But in this particular part of my life, this journey started when I was a business consultant. And I just kind of settled a deal that was, as for my career, it was like, wow, I've done it. It was a client who had a $25 billion problem, and they needed somebody for assistance. And it wasn't a small company. It was actually United Health Group company, which is about, I think, 320 something $billion revenue. So for me, being that I was the only person who happened to be in that presence who needed to solve that problem, and I felt great. I'm like, yeah, we did it. And then it was just, I'm like, and then you start getting calls because people are talking. And I remember that day, my receptionist kind of said, send me an IM. It was those days that you have an IM. For most people don't understand that probably today. There's too many tools. Instant messenger, that's what it was. And it popped up to my computer. It's like, oh, you have some guests here, but they don't look so friendly. And I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking maybe it's their customers. Business is kind of picking up. I've already been in several calls already on that particular area. So I said, but I'm going to give you a call so you can come down and meet them at the receptionist. And yes, she called me and I went down. There were three gentlemen. I warmly greeted them. The first one said, oh, my name is so-and-so, and I'm an IRS agent. And I'm like, So the mind quickly goes up and say, IRS agent, what is IRS agent doing in this space? I'm like, my taxes, I'm doing fine with my taxes. And I said, okay, but I kind of brushed it off. The second one, he said, I'm a Secret Service agent. I'm like, okay, Secret Service agent, IRS agent. At that moment, before that, until that moment, my assumption of Secret Service agents deal with White House. So I'm like, okay, what is this about? And the project I was just finished, it was a veteran project with a veteran department that United Health Group had. So I'm thinking maybe it might have some relation to that, because I had to go through different level of security in order to be able to get to different military bases to evaluate certain things. So I'm thinking maybe. And the third guy, he said, oh, my name is so-and-so, I'm FBI agent. I'm like, okay, IRS, Secret Service, FBI, it makes no sense. And I didn't even know they can sit together in the same space. So I suddenly my heart dropped. I'm like thinking, so what's going on? And I said, okay, how can I help you, gentlemen? And of course, they said you are under arrest. And that was a shocker. Up to that moment, I've lived my life by a particular code. You have to do things right. You have to obey this and you have to serve God. And I was very involved in church, praying and doing all the things that people will do in order to develop a spiritual journey and everything else. So I'm thinking, how is that happening at this moment? And my mind is racing, trying to figure it out. What might have led to that? And I couldn't find it in my mind at that moment. Of course, I just asked them if I can go out and log in the system because I had some information that was sensitive that I was still dealing with. And they walked me, they were very gentleman-like, walked me up to my office. I logged everything else, turned off the laptop and everything else. And we walked out. We got to the elevator. They said, we have to handcuff you. And I'm like, okay, this is beautiful. Being handcuffed. But so I'm thinking, because the office was in the downtown area, Minneapolis. So thinking, walking around downtown with handcuffs, this is just, and they're like, no, don't worry. They kind of handcuffed on the front, and the one guy took his jacket and put on top of on the handcuffs so nobody could see that. So they were very, very nice. But that was the moment that everything else, I mean, when I was up here and everything turned upside down, the ground dropped, and I'm thinking, what's going on? And I think that probably, if I look back in my life, when they put me in that cell waiting to appear before the judge, it was the moment that I've cried. I've never cried before like that. You always kind of hide that feminine, male kind of a thing, masculine aspect. It had to come off because I was by myself in the cell. So I cried and cried because I couldn't figure it out what's going on, especially at that moment. And I was already engaging in some conversation with some interesting contracts from other clients. So I'm thinking all of those things were just coming up and running in my mind. And of course, that afternoon, I saw the judge. What was said that day, I had no clue what they said because my mind was running maybe 600 miles an hour. Of course, the worst thing was seeing my wife in front of the court there trying to come and pick me up to bail. That was kind of an embarrassment for me. And I'm like, okay, I've never expected, never planned, never thought. But that moment started a 9-year journey with legal issue matters. From there, of course, I had a lawyer, and the lawyer said, you know what, this case is just bogus, bullshit, and all that. They use all kind of words. It makes no sense what they're saying and everything else. I don't know anything about law. You tell me at that time, you tell me about the business, I knew something. But law, I had no clue. So simply, he said, let's go to trial. And I'm like, of course, if you think you're going to win, I would love to do to trial because I have clients. I need to serve. I need to take care of my family. Otherwise, we're going to lose everything else. Of course, we already started kind of, we had to move things around to adjust to some type of a life that possibly will be ahead of. In that case, I lost in trial. I didn't know. I mean, today, if I had to redo it, I wouldn't even challenge it. I would have just tapped down. I would have done it differently, in essence. Maybe that's the word I should use, because the rules of the trial are completely different. Anyway, that's the story of another day. So I lost and I was sentenced to 155 months. So sitting there, taking that sentence, it was a nightmare thing. I mean, just if you're sitting somewhere and somebody tell you, I'm going to send you away for 155 months, you cannot do anything that you are used to do anymore. Take away from your environment and everything else. It's quite devastating. I mean, no matter what has happened in a person's life, I tell them you don't want to wish that for anybody, nor do you want for yourself by any means. So I found that myself in that position, and that's actually, so while I was in custody, now I started asking these questions because I'm like, okay, if I've done the things that I was expected to do and found myself here, how did I get here? I wasn't like looking for an excuse, but I just wanted to find out the reason why I got there, not what they said or not what happened, because it was presented and they was said because it was had to deal with my previous business, real estate business, during the 2008 collapse. There was a lot of mortgage products that were created, and I sold a lot of those. And they said, those products aided others to commit fraud, and so therefore I did aiding and abetting. But as a result of that, by either providing information that was key, the people to use, and there is truth, but there is also not truth. But again, that's a different story. What happened. The question was, how do I now go forward? On my infinite wisdom, in fact, and you hear a lot of these noises, like each and every one of these who you're listening there today, As you're in your journey today, you're going to hear a lot of noises that will tell you how and what you should do. And for me, being in that environment, a lot of people are saying, oh, you got to forget this is your new life. You got to forget your wife is likely this is going to happen, or she will move on and everything else. As a man, I wanted to protect my ego. So the first thing I did is when we were talking with my wife one day, I said, listen, girl, baby, I think you're still young, you're beautiful, and there's future ahead of you. Why don't you, if you want to move on, go ahead and do that. Don't worry about me. I'll survive. But I was doing that. Then I thought it was wise. But today I know that I was just protecting that ego that was there, that was sitting behind me. And my wife was wise enough. She said, I don't know who you are, but, and I don't know what you think who I am, because then the person I met. And she kind of pointed certain things, the person who made me laugh, the person who made do this, and she listed a number of things. They said that person is still in there. So I want my husband back. And to me, that was a turning point. It was a wake-up call. I could have taken it as you don't get it, you don't understand what I'm saying. But no, I kind of, after I woke up from that phone call, I meditated a little bit and reflect on what was said. And I took it as like, okay, listen, it's time now to actually change, to transform your life. But I knew one thing. I knew that the information that I had learned through the church up to that moment was not sufficient to help me through the journey ahead. And I'll just throw the scriptures there because that's kind of the place I come from a lot. So if it's okay. And Apostle Paul said, you either conformed by the pattern of the world, or you are transformed by the renewal of the mind. And the pattern of the world simply signifies the experience one has, the condition they find themselves, the circumstances they have to deal with each and every single day. That is the pattern. So either you accept that pattern and make it part of your life, or you transform yourself to something greater by renew your mind. So the journey began on how do I renew the mind? And for you, probably sitting there, you wonder, how do I renew the mind so that I can grow my business? How do I renew my mind so that I can grow my income? How do I renew my mind so that I can create a better relationship in my life? How do I renew my mind so I can continue to grow spiritually? Because probably you've done everything else that is known to you, and yet you have not seen the growth you're looking for. And for me, that was the moment where I started reading a lot of books. I said, I've read the Bible, I'll put it aside. I read Quran, I read Kabbalahs, I read all other body of work that are existing out there with curiosity, because I wanted to understand. And not only that, I read when I read something, I reflected, I applied. I read, reflect, apply, read, reflect, apply. And through that process, I started gaining and it's kind of getting insight of certain things. And that's when I developed this concept. Because I was wondering, how do I love myself? And in the world tell us love ourselves. I'll say, I bought this for myself. I've taken care for myself. I've treated myself. I've done all these things. And that's what the world teaches us about self-love. But through that journey, this message kept coming up back in my mind, is that you have the reason you are here, you are experiencing this, is not what they said you did. It is because of the degree of self-love you have for yourself. And that was kind of like, it did not make sense to me. So I started that journey. I'm like, what does this really mean? Because it's a question that kept coming in my mind. Like, I loved myself and I did everything else to demonstrate that love. In fact, I'm like, I went to church, I gave my tithing, I prayed, we did Bible study, and I did all those things. I served. How does that become anything less? And I gave to the communities and everything else. I'm like, and things were going well. So I'm thinking doing those things added to what I was experiencing. But that was not the case after what I came to discover. And probably that's where we're in this today. I want to kind of share that self-love in detail. So on your journey, because to me, the degree of self-love we exhibit within ourselves will equal the experience we have in our lives. We can blame everything else. We can blame the economy. We can blame the partner you have. You can blame the financial markets. You can blame your parents, your dog, and everybody else can be blamed. But truly, our experience in life, to me, that I have come to discover, is the measure of the self-love we exhibit within ourselves. And if that self-love is improved in the area of experience that we want to increase, the area of that life will increase accordingly. And you look throughout the scriptures, ancient scriptures, we are learning this. There's this concept of as within, so is without. As a person thinks, so is he. So to explain the detail of this concept of self-love, the way I have come to understood or add value to a lot of great guests who have come before me in this amazing podcast, is I would just want to borrow again somewhere where I'm familiar. It is from the scriptures, and in this particular case is quoted where Jesus is having this, he's answering a response, he's providing a response to the question that was given to him, and he said, you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. And a lot of people have taken the neighbor as the person you need to love more. But the statement there is very clear. You should love your neighbor as you love yourself. So it further proves this concept. The degree of what we express equal to the degree we express to ourselves. So the love I have for myself will equal the love I have to that which is the neighbor. But what is interesting in that particular conversation, he went further and told us who is that neighbor. So there's this story of a good Samaritan that followed from that conversation. And a good Samaritan, he goes and providing a detail who is a good Samaritan. And for me, I understood, I look at the scripture from not the letter, not the story. I look at it from the spiritual point of view. What is it actually intended to provide? What is provided to us that we can utilize and transform our lives? And in looking at that, he's talking about this concept of this person, a person is wounded because he or she has been robbed. Something was stolen from that person. And therefore, and they were beaten, whatever, they're wounded. And somebody comes and providing assistance. But this person who is coming and providing assistance is not any other ordinary person you would think, maybe a rabbi or whatever the case might be. So what the story is teaching us is something very interesting. So you're sitting there today, spiritually you are burnt out. Financially, you have done everything else and your bank account does not testify to the fact what you are looking to achieve. Your credit report or your investment account, you're saying, I want to retire, but I'm not seeing that result. Am I going to be able to do that? I want to grow my business. Can I really grow the business? I've advertised, I've done all these things and everybody's saying they're doing this, they're succeeding, but I'm not seeing it. So you're sitting there wondering how you're doing it. And the other person is struggling in the relationship. There was this spark, warmth that they enter into this relationship with. And as time went by, the amber kind of lowered and it weakens and eventually it's no longer there. What was warm has become a cold winter of Minnesota. So you're sitting there wondering, where's the heat? How am I going to revive this today? And I just want to tell you that you can revive it. It is very much possible. And in fact, it is not a place of embarrassment. It is a place of actually, I tell my clients, your challenges, your suffering, your struggles you're experiencing today, it is not a failure. It is simply a signal telling you that something different must be, you must adapt something different in order to change. As Apostle Paul, like I said, you are sitting here, you're looking at, there is this pattern that is existing in my life. I am not very comfortable with it. That is a signal. Just like you're on the road, you see an exit and you're like, is that my exit? Or no, it's not. It's the next one. It's not something that's punishing you. It's just informing you. And your job is to respond. So not to react. A lot of people react to things. So I'm responding it based on the feedback I'm receiving it. I'm processing it. I'm like, no, this is not my exit. So you're finding yourself, you are in that place of uncomfortable position. And now we have to take action. And how do we take action? This is the concept of self-love come to play. And so what does this self-love mean in your situation? You are wounded, just like in the story. You're wounded because you have this, you're emotionally feeling unsatisfied. You have pain in your emotions. Some of it, you might even maybe take a lot of pills in order to kind of go to sleep or doing this because your emotions are not where they need to be. So you are wounded. And it's not a physical wound, it's a spiritual wound. You can't say, doctor cannot put a bandage on it. So you have this wound that you're experiencing either financially, in your relationship, or spiritually. And in that particular wound, we're told that a good Samaritan comes in. And a good Samaritan, who is your neighbor? the real neighbor in life in that story is your circumstances. They are there with you no matter where you go. They're by your side. They're testifying of who you are. So you look at yourself, I'm like, okay, everything you look in your life, actually, that becomes your neighbor. But the scripture tells us you need to love that neighbor as much as you love yourself, which poses this question: what type of neighbor do you want to have? What kind of experience do you want to have? That experience you want to have must be the love you exhibit to yourself. That's why he says you have to love yourself as much as you love your neighbor. I mean, you love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. So you have to start by defining this neighbor. The person who is wounded and robbed. And what is robbed of you? You're robbed of the joy you should have had if your marriage was in the right position, providing the right experience. So the fact that you are not experiencing it, you've been robbed of it. You're robbed of your financial capacity that would have given you the flexibility to live life consistent with your interests when you look at your bank account and it says you don't have enough. You have to rely on debt. You have to go and borrow this and all that stuff, and you can't even meet those needs. And that condition, it says you've been robbed of the benefit it would have been yours in an event your financial situations would have been correct. So you're the very person in the story. And so it is true in the spiritual world. You're burnt out. Like, I've done all these things. I've gone to all these seminars, and here I am still experiencing the same. You are robbed because you're not having the full benefit that you would have had if circumstances would have been different. So you're the very person who is wounded and robbed. But who's the good Samaritan? Not Alpha, not Loren. We are just voices trying to encourage you and speak to you and motivate you to do that which you need to do. The really good Samaritan is that desire. Because that desire, if it is fulfilled, it is the one that heals your wound. It is the one that restores the very benefit you could have had by being the person you wanted to be in your marriage, in your businesses, in your relationship, spiritually, and all that stuff. So that desire is truly the actual good Samaritan. It comes to wound your wound and restore that which has been robbed of you. The issue is usually we don't know how to actually embody that desire to be. Often we think, let's take an example. I'm like, I need probably about $2 million to do A, B, C, D, F, G. And I look at my bank account, it says, you don't even have 100,000. And definitely my mind logically says it's impossible. And I write myself off. The desire still is there, but I did not recognize it. So therefore, I cannot be healed from the pain and the struggles I'm having. Because that person who was robbed, if he did not accept the help of a good Samaritan, that person would not have experiencing the benefit that he experienced as the story was told. So today, if you're sitting somewhere, you cannot listen to your desire and know how to follow it. You cannot experiencing the benefit it offers no matter what. You can go to all the seminar you want to go. You can see all the coaches you want to see. You can go to church. You can pray. You can give tithe. You can do all the sacrifices and every rituals and everything else. It will not give you any benefit unless a renewal of the mind happens. And that's where this concept of self-love to me comes in place. Because in the scriptures, and I looked at it the same in other content of other scriptures. And the reason I use the Bible, because most people, it's easier to find. If I talk about Magadivita, most people will be like, what is that? If I talk about Kabbalah, people will be like, what is that? But I can use that and somebody can quickly find that. In the Bible, Apostle Paul talked about what love is. He said, love is kind. Love is patient. So let's look at what kind means or what is patient means. Patient is to be able to endure something longer than what is normal. So if I put my hand on a stove, and I let my hand sit there longer than normal, even though it's going to be burned, that means I have expressed patience over that heat that comes from the stove and burned my hand. And that's what love is. It is the idea that we can endure it in our mind longer than normal. Any idea, whether it's good or bad, if that idea is lingering in our mind longer than what is normal to us, we have expressed love toward that idea. Yeah. So I have clients who say, but I love my husband so much. And then they talk about this husband, but he's very lazy. He's not patient. He's just stubborn. So that's, you're telling me stubbornness qualities of your husband lingers in your mind longer than normal. Laziness, yes, he might be exhibiting it, but that character, that quality lingers in your mind longer than normal. In your businesses, yes, economy might be tough, things might be difficult. So you go back and go to the store and you say, I see people posting, oh, the price of eggs is extremely high. So suddenly you start thinking that things are pricier than what is normal. And that concept, that idea lingers in your mind longer than normal. So you're expressing love over that idea that things are tough, prices are higher, I cannot afford. My husband is lazy, my husband doesn't this, my husband can't love me, my husband is just a jerk, or whatever the case. And there are people who like to say, my husband is a dog. Of course, if the idea of a dog lingers in your mind longer than normal, you have expressed your love to this concept called a dog. And the person in that expression you have in your mind is your love. And therefore, according to this concept of self-love, you are loving the idea of a dog-like husband more than anything else. And therefore, you're going to experience it. The spiritual laws that does not respect a person is not what I do, is what I exercise here. So each and every time I have to exercise an idea within myself that makes me feel warm, an idea that I want to experience in my life, regardless of the circumstances I face. And I had to learn that a hard way when I was in prison, because you're surrounded by all the negative things. And I spent almost 9 years trying to fight that sentence that is illegal, filing motions and asking for permission and doing all these things. Each and every effort, the government were able, I wasn't as lawyer, so I was just based on what I learned in law. I was using those knowledge that I've gained to do that. But there was all these ways that they could shut it down. You didn't follow this particular rule. You didn't apply this particular procedure. And of course, the court is a place of laws and procedures in order to create consistency and expectations. And if you're not following a procedure, you're barred from, no matter how injustice the issue in question is before them, if the procedure is not followed, you can't get the remedy you're looking for. So I kept getting this over and over. And eventually, I had a guy who had helped him through the same process. I was just teaching him this concept of self-love. And he was facing 100, and I think it was an 80-something month in his sentence for having a gun, because he was a felony, so he had possession of a gun. He didn't use it or did nothing to it. The fact that he possessed it as a felony, he was facing that sentence. And he applied his concept of self-love. He was exonerated. He won his case, despite all the evidence that was against him. And I'm teaching people here, and I see people are getting results. Guards will come and ask me for advice, and I will coach them through the process. And they will come, you'll see them. Sometimes they don't tell you, but they'll walk by you with a big smile. And I'm like, yep, it's done. I know what they mean. And people are like, why are they laughing or smiling at you? And I'm like, just leave it alone. And staff sometimes will call and just say, no, I know, because, word gets around. People say, oh, so-and-so, and people will come and start asking. So I'm like, I'm telling these people, but I keep fighting the system. I'm like, I can't do that. So I said, I have to be the student of my own teaching. And I did exactly. I stopped doing laws. I stopped asking. I stopped doing anything else. I went and elevate my self-love, if I would call it, to the concept of freedom. And within a week, I was called and said, we got to get you out of here. The same prosecutor who was finding all these reasons to say no, the same prosecutor said, this person deserves to go. That's the beauty of when you start applying. It's an effortless matter. If you do it right, things naturally work out in your favor. Just like if things naturally works out against you, because you don't go and ask for the negative things to happen in your life. You don't go there and ask, I don't know, I don't want to do this. I want to do this business, but I want it to fail. I want it to be a struggle business. You don't go and ask that. It's just naturally things happen and make it a tough situation. In your marriage, you didn't go there and say, I want to have a tough marriage. Naturally, it just happens that things start falling apart. And the beauty of this spiritual, I call self-love concept, it naturally develops you to the person you want to be. You don't need to use effort. You don't need to go and figure out what system works. You're spiritual awareness or your spirit knows what works best for you.
I think, yes. I think hearing that through line through different spiritual texts, law of attraction, what I hear when you say self-love, it's what you focus on will grow.
Definitely.
To just summarize it very simply. And I know a lot of people, myself included, it's like sometimes you have to go through that challenge to really understand and practice these spiritual concepts to really appreciate the
Yep.
self-love even more. So it's not about the judgment or I shouldn't have done that. You didn't know better. And it's all guiding you to that deeper connection to self, to God, and to your purpose. And I know you have an awesome 3I framework.
Yes.
That you have going over identity, intimacy, and influence. So I would love to hear how that kind of ties into all of this self-love. Like, I feel like that just goes deeper into what we just talked about.
Definitely. And thank you for
Yeah.
adding that. Yeah. What you kind of added there is just to the point. And so how do you embody this self-love into your life in area of finances, in area of relationship, in area of spirituality? So I use this 3I framework. And it begins at the very first step. I call this concept called you have to idealize. And idealization simply means to idealize is taking something that is broken and make it right. Simple. So it's just a simple process. So, we're not looking at something physical. What type of emotion that is broken in me? And a broken emotion is an emotion that might not, doesn't feel you comfortable, doesn't feel warm, doesn't feel you happy. So I'm saying in a relationship, an example, I said, I am not feeling recognized in this relationship. I am not getting that which I was looking or that I used to have, the warmth that I felt before. So now we've identified the problem. We know who is the culprit here. It is this feeling that the result is this feeling that I'm having that is not comfortable. To idealize now is to make it right. So think of the opposite. And I tell them, I usually give my clients an example. A very simple example is Jesus had said this simple statement, said, if somebody slapped you in the right, give them the other cheek. The slap you've gotten is the emotion that I felt. I'm not comfortable. I'm not recognized. I'm feeling marginalized in my relationship. That's the slap. He said, but don't resist it. Instead, turn the other cheek. Do the opposite. And the opposite is, if I'm feeling marginalized, I want to feel warm and feel recognized. That's the opposite. So I'm identifying the feeling that I want to have. Simple. And therefore, it's all about you. It's not about your husband. It's not about your wife, or it's not about your spouse. It's just about you now. And once you've done that, you've idealized already. It doesn't take days. It doesn't take hours. It's a moment of like, this is what I feel. And for some people, they might have 20 feelings that they have. Identify the one that actually hold the rest. If I fix this, the rest disappears. So again, so you don't have to deal with so many issues. And then after you've idealized now, so I know I want to feel warm, recognized, respected. Those are the qualities that I want to experience here. Then I introduce those to me. How do you introduce it? You affirm it first. I am. You have to take the identity of the thing you want. As you mentioned earlier on your summary, the thing you focus the most, it becomes. So now by identifying it and I personalize it, I'm start building this momentum of focus. So that's what you introduce is. And you can do it. I call there's 3 layers of identification. One is just an affirmation and eventually develop to self-talk. We're always talking in our mind, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. The worst thing is if you're talking and you don't know what you're talking about. And there's probably 90% of population in this world, they don't know what they're talking to themselves in their mind. They go about their lives. So that's why when I identify the feeling I want, I become aware of something. And now I can start being attentive to what conversation I'm having here. So that's just through affirmation, prayer, supplication, whatever you want to call it, that becomes a method that you improve the quality of conversation you're having. The other layer is visualization or imagination. You visualize yourself to be the person you want to be. What would you do if you are that person and you take that identity, because that person you want to be have a particular identity, a particular character. So you embody that in your mind and in your imagination. And the last one is feeling. How would you feel if you are the person you wanted to be, the person you identified, the person who have this warm relationship? the person who is successful in their business, the person who have this spiritual growth that they're looking for. So now you have done the introduction. So you've embodied all those three layers in your personality. And then the last one is iterate. And iterate is just to repeat it over and over and over. And once you do that, you've done the 3I framework. Eventually, you have focused, you've placed attention where your focus goes, so your experience follows.
Yes, I love seeing the through lines through everybody's work. That's why I love having so many different people on here, because we're all pretty much saying the same thing, but in a different way.
Definitely.
Right? And different stories. And so you never know which way or which person's going to hit your heart, that you really need to hear. And that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, is because I had my own experiences listening
There
to
you
other
go.
people's shows, desired to give back and to share other people's beautiful ways of seeing the world, ways of seeing the divine, and how to be a sovereign creator,
There you
somebody
go.
who does what you just described. How do we, who do you want to be? Create your own life. Like,
Definitely.
live as that person now. And the law of attraction, all of these beautiful mystical spiritual texts confirm
Yep.
it has to come to fruition. It has to. It's
It
the
does.
law.
And science today is telling us exactly the same thing. So even though it's catching up, but it's the last frontier that tells us all these things were true. And the key is just to embody them in our lives. And for me, I'm doing that every single day. And I've made myself to be a student of it. Every day, practice it as I preach. And I tell people exactly whatever I share is something that I do in my own house, with my children, with my wife. And today's life is much better, more comfortable than it could ever been, or could have I imagined before. So whatever you are, whatever journey you are taking today, when you are listening to this podcast, know that there is a way forward. Where you have reached is not your last point. It is just the beginning of a new chapter. You just need to have the right tools, the right vehicle. And I think Loren here providing a wonderful environment that we can hear different conversation from different point of view. Because I come from a different point of view. The speakers who came before me came from a different point of view. And each and every one of us, as Loren pointed, we are adding into that journey that you are taking so that it can be more beautiful. And we're here to me, I believe we're here just to experience life in a much beautiful way.
I agree. I think that's what I keep realizing. My purpose isn't to do and like, serve. My purpose is really to feel good. It's self-love. And of course, the serving and the growth is going to happen. It's a side effect.
There you go. And I think and I think there was one episode you kind of talked about that concept. Yeah. And I think that's, and I think most of us, we're focusing on external things. I got to go and do this. And I see people who are burnt out because they're busy outwardly and empty inside. So they come home exhausted. They have showcases. They've pretended out there, and they come home broken every single night. And they find themselves in this cycle thinking that's what want to change. But truly, love yourself.
Love yourself.
And to love yourself, to embody the ideas, to me, the way I look at it is you're embodying that idea or the concept you want to be. You're expressing love to yourself. And that love you're expressing to yourself, you're expressing to your neighbor, which is your circumstances. And at the end of the day, the law of attraction, the law of assumptions, call it what you want to call it. It's a prayer. It is that it will bring to fruition. It's a spiritual law. Is not a respecter of a person.
My goodness, I could talk to you all day. Alpha, thank you so much. I'm sure the listeners are going to love this episode. Was there anything else on your heart that you wanted to share before we say goodbye for now?
Yeah, I just want to say to each and every one of you, as I've said before, don't write yourself off because of the circumstances you're experiencing. 9 years in a confined environment is not easy. My environment was constantly testifying to me, and everybody else is telling you how low you are in life. But I had a choice either to embody the qualities that I was experiencing as mine and identify myself with them so that I can live the rest of my life in that particular, even though I know a lot of people comes out free in that environment, but they are still carrying the same quality. They feel themselves less. And therefore they experience life in a lesser quality that they should have. So today, if you're sitting there, know that you have a way out. You don't need to know anyone. You don't need to do anything else. As long as you're listening to Loren constantly here, you're going to gain a knowledge and understanding that will help you to grow from where you are to where you need to be. It is possible. I've seen it in my testimony. I testify to that. But also, I want to encourage. I have some resources that, since Loren is pretty cool, if you reach out to me in any of my social media handles and just it's special for Loren, I'll give you. I have a free gift, which is the breakdown, a presentation that I break it down this 3I framework, in a very simple steps. And when you come into that website, just click, when in any of the session, DM me 3I framework and I got you. But also, if you have time, go to Amazon. I have a book called The Exodus Within, How to Break Free from Mental Bondage from Inside Out. It's a beautiful book. Get that book, and it breaks it down, the same thing we talked about here, from a different angle now, because that's the angle from I took it, a story from the Bible, and break it down exactly what we discussed here, how to express self-love. How do you exit from within that circumstances that you're experiencing today to your promised land? And so I'm like, for instance, for this free presentation, you can only get it because you are listening to Loren podcast, the Sovereign podcast. And when you just, either you do, if you can't remember the word 3I framework, you put sovereignty in the DM and I'll know where you're coming from and I will share with you that free resources. So otherwise, my name again is Alpha, ALPHA, and last name is MSHIHIRI.
Beautiful. And we'll have all that in the show notes with instructions. So it'll
Thanks.
just be easy for everybody to click away. Thank you again, Alpha, so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and bringing that really beautiful, powerful, divine masculine to the world, to the show. And if you guys, just as he said earlier, if you like the show, please share it. Please give a review. That really helps us spread this beautiful wisdom, this self-love knowledge worldwide. If you thought of a loved one, there's a reason. Please share this episode with them. You never know what one podcast can do to help transform somebody's life. Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time.